Remember the good old days when quests were underground, NPCs were there to be killed, and the finale of every dungeon was the dragon on the 20th level? Those days are back. Dungeon Crawl Classics doesn't waste your time with long-winded speeches, weird campaign settings, or NPCs who aren't meant to be killed. Each adventure is 100% good, solid dungeon crawl, with the monsters you know, the traps you fear, and the secret doors you know that are there somewhere. This is Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Every day, dice roll, quick adventure calls, walking through tabletops, golden halls. Masters of pen and paper, RPGs of every flavor, talking about different creators. The choice of games is never greater. Come with us to games they run through, new, old, and interesting.
Okay, welcome to the show. Today we are talking about Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'm Finny. This is
DG. How you doing? Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'm so excited to jump into this game because this is the old school feeling D20 experience that I feel like I missed out on as a child. Right?
Sure.
I didn't
100%.
get that shot. I wasn't born in the 70s. I didn't get that shot at OG Dungeons and Dragons, and this is my opportunity to get in on the ground floor or something. It's been out for a little while, but I mean, it's fresh enough that it feels new, right?
Yeah. It brings back the real brutality of the early editions of D&D, right?
We're not pulling punches in this one.
There are zero punches pulled here. And it's refreshing because we're back to player races being classes. We're set in the fantasy realm again, as opposed to there's the sister of Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, which is a more sci-fi setting, and we'll cover that in a later episode.
That's another episode. That's different.
Yeah.
Similar but different.
This Dungeon Crawl Classics is dedicated to Jim Rothloff.
Nailed it.
He is an illustrator who worked at TSR during the early days, and actually in the physical copy of the book, his last 4 works have been showcased in there, which is awesome. Really cool. Yeah, he was and the art style in Dungeon Crawl Classics is
so good.
It's one of my favorite kinds of styles.
That classic D&D hand drawn. The artists were just told draw this and given no other direction, and they just deliver. Yeah,
it's like cross hatches for shading. It's very Merkborg-esque in the illustrations. Designed and published by Joseph Goodman of Goodman Games. Goodman Games started off making scenarios for AD&D all the way up to, I think, 3rd, possibly 4th edition.
Yeah, I had read that they were releasing. So that's where things kind of get a little messy for me, because I recognized the name Dungeon Crawl Classics as an add-on for 3rd edition. Like they were
modules for it.
Yeah. So because it was basically like a throwback to the OG, and now they're not modules. Well, there are modules, but we're talking about an actual full-fledged game system here.
Yeah. They after they were done making modules, they decided, hey, but we can do this quite easly. We've been doing it for a while now, and they made a single simple system. It was very cool. Again, back to the AD&D era of brutality, the simpleness of the rules, with the mechanics being, again, simple, easy to pick up, easy to play, easy to pick up, hard to master.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And we're back into tables, baby.
Oh yeah, there's boatloads.
There's a lot of
tables, and I always appreciate a game that throws tables in, because it allows me, not even as just a DM but as a player, to kind of quickly run through things. And especially because of the way, and we'll get into this in a quick moment, but the way that you create characters in this game, those tables become very important very quickly.
Yes,
one quick thing I quickly wanted to touch on before we move on, though, is that it's been said that the game was kind of an OGL system that kind of took Appendix N and third edition and kind of merged them. And I don't know if you're familiar with Appendix N, but Appendix N being the appendix in the OG Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, where it referenced a list of books and publications that inspired the game, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that is just so super cool that like they used the same inspiration to create this game that the original set was created, right? Somebody had referenced this game as being like if Gary Gygax was still creating Dungeons and Dragons and was asked to create a new edition, this is what you would get, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I do feel like that would be the way it would have moved.
Yeah. You can feel that inspiration in the game. Like,
for sure.
Like stitched throughout it, right?
We are back into a D20 system.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting back to our roots.
I've said on previous episodes or something about the D20. It's iconic with gaming to me. So an RPG feels like an RPG when I have a D20 in my hand. That's just how I'm built, right?
Right.
We talked about with Traveler the D6 system, and the D6 system's great, but it doesn't have that same thing as, when you roll those 2d6, it just doesn't feel the same when you roll a 20. You roll 2 6s, that's great. It's great. That's an awesome thing. But when you roll that D20 and it shows the 20 or the 1, honestly, there's just something in that just is like, it just hits you in the right spot.
It feels huge when it happens both ways.
Speaking of rolling 1s and 20s, the disadvantage system obviously doesn't exist because it didn't then.
No.
Now you have these funky dice.
we get extra dice, guys. Yay! Dungeon Crawl Classics utilizes a set of dice coined the Zoki dice or something. So you get a D3, a D5, a D7, a D14, D16, D24, and D30 on top of your D4,
your standard 7/7,
your D8s, your D6s, all the way up. So now you have this line, an unbroken line almost of dice. And as you fight with advantage, if you get the upper hand on the enemy, you take, instead of rolling your D20, you roll a D24.
Yep.
And try and hit your target DC of your enemy's AC. It's so cool.
It's a very interesting system.
It's a lot of swapping dice around, but it changes the way the game plays then.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of those dice look a little funny. The D7 and the D5 are very weird looking dice. They're very weird looking, right? And I mean, obviously if you don't have the physical dice, there are digital dice if you're using a virtual tabletop or something. This is not a difficult thing for you to get your hands on in that regard. But this game, in my opinion, plays best in a dark room in a basement, surrounded by your friends.
A bag of Doritos,
and a Mountain Dew in the corner. That in my opinion is the way to do this one. But obviously if you don't have the physical dice, you can always use a virtual set.
For your dice goblins out there,
here's your opportunity to get some more.
There's some specific dice that don't show up very often. Character creation is done very much like the old school D&D. 3d6 straight down the line. You got your strength, your agility, stamina, personality, intelligence, and luck.
And these are changed probably due to copywriting with Dungeons and Dragons.
OGL, probably.
Strength is strength, fine. Agility is your dexterity. Stamina is your constitution. Personality is your charisma. Intelligence is your intelligence. I can't help but notice there's no wisdom.
Yep. There is no wisdom.
And then we've got luck.
And then you have luck. Yeah. So then we decide for our HP. First is, so after you get your 3d6 down the line, and the book specifically says you can generate your character however you want.
Yeah,
but,
these are the guided rules.
Yeah, in beta testing, they found that players had more fun rolling up their characters like this, doing it straight down the line. You know, you get a minimum 3, maximum of 18. No.
Yep.
Yeah, 18. And you get what you get. And boy, I rolled up a few characters myself, and they were not
Some of them
going
are
to
going to
last
be
very
stinkers.
long.
Yep.
They were not going to last
That's
long.
why it's called the funnel.
your HP is 1d4 plus your stamina mod.
That's right.
That you get from, there's a table that shows, anything from a 10 to a 12 is a 0 modifier, 12 to 15 is a +1 or something. It's not quite the same as D&D, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
So anyways, you get a D4 plus a mod. If you have a negative mod on your stamina, it's D4 minus that mod,
That's right.
obviously, and minimum 1.
That's
right.
So
I had 4 characters, and 3 of them had 1 HP.
That's right. Yeah, you can roll a 4, but if you have a -3 stamina, you're still at 1 HP.
Exactly.
Right? You can't have 0 HP, just like the other games we've spoken about that have these types of things. So you have a min out of 1. So if you roll a 1 and you have a -2, you're still at 1 HP, and that's
you
what
still
it is.
get stuck with. Yeah.
If you get sneezed on, you're going down. And that's that.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
And that's that. That's the way. So then after that, you roll a D100 for your occupation, which is basically your starting background.
Yeah.
And with that background, you get a trade good, quote unquote. It's like anything from stinky cheese, a shoehorn. One of the farmers gets a hen. Like, I don't know. It might come in useful somewhere.
Who knows?
Yeah, and then you also gain a weapon, a tool that you are proficient with. So, like, specifically, off the top of my head, the farmer gets a pitchfork.
Right. Blacksmith probably gets a hammer.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also have a chance to roll as a quote-unquote demi-human, which is your dwarf, your elf, and your halfling races. Now, these... if you roll as one of those, and it's random, it's on the D100, there's like 6 dwarf, 6 elf, and 6 halfling.
Sure.
And the rest of it's all human. You're everybody
just
else is
regular,
human.
ordinary Joe.
So if your background rolls as a demi-human, you get to be that demi-human if you level up, if you make it out of the funnel.
Yep.
And just like in the AD&D era, your dwarf is a class. You don't get to be a dwarf fighter or dwarf cleric. You're a dwarf. Yeah,
just like old school.
Just like old school. If you're an elf or a halfling, you don't get to be a halfling rogue. You don't get to be a halfling cleric. It's a halfling. Yeah. Yep. Very, very reminiscent of the older system.
Yep.
And then we roll 5d12 for our starting coppers. Copper, not gold.
Not gold.
And with that money, you can buy your equipment and get started.
Right.
That's all it takes to make a character.
And it's designed to be snappy, right? Like the whole purpose behind this is for you to create these characters quickly and to go. So you're not sitting there and thinking, the reason why you roll 3d6 down the line is you're not like, this guy's going to be... You can do whatever you want, but based on the way that the book works, you are rolling the dice and determining the class of your human based on those stats and your occupation. Like all of this stuff fits together. You're not making any like long-term lasting decisions that are going to have backstory and all of this other junk because you're about to run your characters through a mulcher.
Yes. Low level characters do not survive in the world of Dungeon Crawl Classics.
These are
And
level 0 characters. They are not level 1s.
These characters are commoners.
Yeah.
There's no, I'm
Nothing
level
special about 'em.
1, so I'm better than a commoner. No, you're as common as they come. You literally came off the field with your pitchfork and your pet hen, and you're going down into this dungeon looking for God knows what.
There's a reason.
Exactly. So what the book suggests is you roll up anywhere from 2 to 4 characters to bring down into this funnel with you. And they all run at the same time. You and your 4 other players at the table with you each have up to 4 characters to run through this. And because they are so low level and because they are so squishy, you'll find out which ones survive and which ones don't real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end of the funnel, which is a short dungeon that gives 10 XP, which is all you need to level up from level 0 to level 1, you come out with maybe 2 characters. You might.
Maybe.
Typically 1 character, or
If that.
halfway through you might have to roll another one. I mean, who cares?
You can always fill the funnel back up again.
Exactly. You can always fill the funnel. And then, after that, after you complete the funnel, you come out, you get to pick your class for your human, or continue on the class of the rogue, or the dwarf, the elf, or the halfling.
Right. And again, you don't need to use you can roll your characters up. If you want to be a specific type of character, you can do that. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. But the cool thing with this system is that in the funnel, in the way that this works, you can bring your group to the table and everybody's at the exact same playing field. There is no min-maxing in this regard. This is you creating a character and understanding that you're about to enter a game where you're probably not going to survive to the end of it anyways. And if you somehow magically do make it to the end, it feels that much better because this character has had to overcome these hardships in order to get here.
You get to watch your character grow into a hero.
For sure.
Now, the max level in Dungeon Crawl Classics is level 10.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go up to level 20 as the D&D and the Pathfinders do. It's locked at level 10. So anything, I think the book says level 5 and above, you are a person of great intrigue and great import.
Yeah.
There's not too many heroes that get to go from level 0 to level 10 at one go. So
yeah, you're by all accounts like the hero, the fabled hero who came into town and cleared out the bandit's nest kind of thing, right? Like
exactly. Yeah. We are back with a reflex, a fortitude, and a will save, just like our Pathfinder 2e.
This is interesting. Like, I mean, I get it. Pathfinder 2e was based off of old systems, but I was a bit surprised to see it as reflex, fortitude, and will, and having that system built into this one, right? Like that would be part of the kind of the new flavoring on the old system type of thing.
Yeah,
kind of. It feels newer than it actually is, because I'm used to like AC, THAC0, old school, that kind of thing, more so than the 3 defense system, right?
Yeah, I think they wanted to trim down on the amount of skills and saves and just things to fill up your sheet.
Driving the line between themselves and Wizards of the Coast as well.
Exactly, that too, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that is kind of the thing. And you had mentioned here that the checks seem to be pretty logical. It follows the same pathing that Pathfinder 2nd edition does. Climbing a cliff face, you'd be using strength because you're literally climbing, right?
Yeah.
Agility for climbing rocky terrain, and that the checks are 1d20 for trained and 1d10 for untrained, which is a really cool thing. If you're not trained in the skill, you can still attempt it, but you're not going to be as good as somebody who is trained in it. And I like this because there's still a little bit of dumb luck, but it's not like the barbarian making a miraculous intelligence save with a nat 20 kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. The DCs in Dungeon Crawl Classics go from a DC 5 to a DC 20.
Right.
DC 20 is pretty tough, but that is including you roll your D20 or your D10, and you add any modifiers that you need for that as well to that. So if you have a modifier to your strength, say that is a +10 for some reason, you could, in theory, be untrained somehow in strength and make a roll and still get to the 20 to pass the DC.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really cool system. I like that they've kind of, I wouldn't say streamlined it, but I like that they've kind of they cut the fat off of it, right? Like they tidied it up. They tried to tighten it up as best that they could while still leaving the meatiness in it. So they didn't reduce it like they did with Merkborg, where it's like you roll, it's done. You roll, it's done. It's still got some punch to it. And I think that's really cool.
It's still, dare I say, GM or judge in Dungeon Crawl Classics. Judge playing against the players. Not playing, I don't want to say against because that's not really what...
Yeah, it's not a versus thing, but
it's not a versus thing, but it's a little bit like that. Yeah. In combat, you get one movement action. Mm-hmm. For humans, you move 30 feet. For elves... for humans and elves, you move 30 feet. And for dwarfs and halflings, you get 20 feet of movement.
Which makes sense. You got little legs. Can't move as far.
You got little legs. Exactly. And then you also get one action dice. So you don't get attacks. You don't get multiple attacks. You get action dice. And depending on your class, your action dice can do different things. Like the halfling, I believe, the action dice can be used for either combat or for skill checks. Mm-hmm. Whereas the fighter just only gets the action dice for attacks. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense, right? This is also would be, if you're a magic user, this would be your magic.
Yeah, that would be your spell casting.
Yeah. I like the 2 action system. It's a movement plus whatever you want to do type of thing. Yeah,
it simplifies the things that you can do on your turn by quite a bit, which is refreshing, because in D&D you get your movement, your action, your bonus action, your reaction. You get all these things to do, and your character sheet is usually full of things that you can possibly do, but
regularly don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gets confusing too, right? Like, I mean, I find sometimes, especially with bonus actions, right? Because you get one bonus action, but there are so many things that use a bonus action that oftentimes in the chaos of what's going on the table, people are using multiple bonus actions. And if the DM in those cases don't catch it, it's kind of not
used. Yep. There's a
lot of abusing the system going on in those regards. So I like that this is in this way. It's simplified.
Yeah. Again, like we said, they take away advantage, disadvantage, and favor the sliding up and down the dice rail. Mm-hmm. Just hit your rail of dice and be good with it. And then also two-handed fighting, so a weapon in each hand. You get to roll a d20 for your attack on your main hand. You decide which hand is your main hand, and then a d16 on your offhand, which is
lower.
Yeah, depending on proficiency and all that other stuff with it,
right? Or
whether you're surrounded and you're just trying to hack at something.
And can any character do 2-weapon fighting, or is that strictly locked to specific classes, like the dwarf or the fighter? Or
I believe it's strictly locked to certain classes.
I thought so too. I couldn't quickly find it in the book, but the
halfling I know has 2-weapon fighting. the dwarf has they're built as a sword and board, so you get your sword and your shield.
Right.
And the dwarf has a special bonus ability of shield bashing, which doesn't tie into their action dice. It's a separate dice roll of a D16 again, I think, for their shield bash.
Right.
Which is very cool. It gives you it turns the dwarf into something more than just a better fighter or less than better fighter. It turns it into something completely different.
Got it. Yeah, doing a quick scan of the book, I'm finding the halfling has that ability, like that innate ability. But then it's also part of the table, which is on table 9.2, which is located on page 380.
Okay.
So it is possible that when you are rolling on these tables that exist in here, these are humanoid variations. It is possible that you could roll that. It's a D8 roll. It's number 3 on table 9.2.
Right.
And again, it's just more areas where you can customize your characters a little bit more, which is super cool.
Yeah, they get a little more unique, and it's really nice to see that.
Yeah, the artwork on this page, like this book is filled with that old school, just doodles. They're doodles, and I love it. Right?
That is the best thing you can call them, is doodles, and like. It's crazy, just the different amounts of illustrating in here and the different styles. It's so cool. Just flip through the book and see, like on table 5.8, wizard spells, they got this like Doctor Strange guy going in the corner, and just it just fills up part of the empty part of the table.
Exactly.
It's like somebody just scribbled it in because they had an empty spot, like in old textbook in school, right?
Yep. Yeah, I love it. It is filled with just kind of throwback drawings to old school. I love it. Yeah, it's something, I don't know if you touched on this when we were talking about the spells or not, but the wizards do have an option of something called spell burn, where they can sacrifice points from their strength, agility, or stamina. And each time they do that, each point that they sacrifice will give a +1 to that roll, to that spell roll.
Yeah. And this is specific to wizards. Now, clerics have been known to do it, but it's only to be done with, intense magical powers that they need to do this. But wizards do have this ability that they can sacrifice a part of themselves to cast a really powerful spell. And the descriptors for it are like, you have to carve a pound of flesh out of your body with a knife that's been ceremonial knife from whatever distant god from outer plane, such and such, and you make it up and go for it, because it's like stuff like that. It's
totally
really weird. Or your fingernails all fall off, or you gotta, for every point you need, you have to spill a tablespoon of your own blood. And
there's the way that these systems work like that is something that is severely lacking in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which is these things that you're talking about end up being what makes your character cool, right? What ends up happening in 5th edition is you make your character cool right off the bat, right? And cool in quotes, right? They're built the way that you want them to. But in games like this, where it's like you lost an eye because you had to empower this spell a little bit harder to save your friend who was about to die, and now you're traveling with that friend, you're missing an eye, they're still alive, and you have this dichotomy where you can now lord that over them, like, hey, I literally gave up depth perception for you. The least you could do is go to the bar and get me a drink. You know what I mean? Like,
you can go down the stairs first and find the trap for me.
it creates this world where you can now create your character do things with your character, and as you play, you're constantly changing in a beneficial way that is allowing you additional ways to role play, to play with additional characters at the table, to open up stories that otherwise wouldn't be there. Yes, you can do that in 5th edition, but it is not ingrained in the system the way that it is for things like this.
Yeah, and again, even with this system, the judge and the players are who decide what to use and what not to use in this book. But in the preface, the author does say, please try it the way that we have laid it out, because we have found that through extensive playtesting, it is fun doing it this way. And that's another thing that I love about this book and this rule set, is that it's on the judge to talk to their players about how things will work, like regaining spell slots specifically, whether they refill on a long rest, or if it is the new dawn, or if they're black arts, the new moon, or the midnight moon, or by praying to your god, and then you can get your spells back. The judge and the players decide on how that works, and that happens throughout this whole book. Of they're not telling you specific things about certain things, because they want the judge to use their own discretion about how their table wants to be run and how they want to run their game and make it work for everyone. Like the skill checks. Yep. They don't list a skill that is, for shooting a boat, or not for rowing a boat.
Sure.
What skill is used to row a boat? You can either do dexterity to keep in rhythm, or you could do strength to pull it, right?
Power through it, yep.
However the player can...
Charisma for encouraging your players. There's different ways you can pull it together.
However you can convince your DM or your judge here that I'm doing this with dexterity because this is how it's happening. Okay, perfect, done. That's how we're going to roll that for you. Next time, you might have a different approach, and it might be something else.
Exactly. On the same topic of spells, they do have degrees of success, and those tables, the degrees of success tables, the spells are based on the roll made in order to cast that spell. And rule of thumb, typically, the higher the roll, the better the result, right? Fireball that kind of fizzles out versus the fireball that explodes in amazing, glorious, glowing red, fiery amazingness.
I'm just going to read. I'm just going to read this because the roll of 36 plus on a fireball cast by a wizard. The caster launches a fireball at a target up to 1 mile away.
Wow, it's literally a nuke.
doing 20d6 damage. The caster can choose an area of effect ranging from a single human-sized target up to a sphere of 40 feet in radius. The caster need not have line of sight to their target. They can choose geographical points to which they have knowledge. Like, I know there's a specific tree beyond that hill. I'm casting my fireball and I'm hitting it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or a target. They can choose a geographic point of which they have knowledge, or a target of which they have physical trace, like a fingernail, a lock of hair, and the fireball explodes at the designated point.
Oof.
That is insane.
Like, it's literally a tactical nuke.
Yeah. A tactical nuke that you could shove up somebody's butt. Like, it's so crazy. And like, every spell has stuff like this, because in the spell description it says range 50 feet or more.
Right.
Apparently it's 50 to a mile. Like
you literally. Exactly. It's stuff like that really it just really gives you, as the wizard casting the spell, rolling that as a result, it's just all these different pieces layering and culminating together creates that epic moment, right? That one that every tabletop RPG player is chasing, where it's like the chips are down. This is it. This is my last shot. If I don't make this, we're done for. And then you throw that and you roll that 36 and the table erupts. Everyone around you is like cheering and like you completely clutched.
Yeah.
That is ingrained across the board in this game.
Yeah, that's how this game is played. And
you die a horrible, horrible death.
I mean, there's that. Yes. The wizard has a table for misfiring his spells when he doesn't roll as well.
That's right.
So this means you have to roll 5 more times on that misfire, and that all happens. Like, because you rolled a 1 on your fireball, which is a pretty big deal.
No kidding. And I mean, we're talking fireball. All of the spells have this built in, right? Like, every spell has this. There are lists on lists on lists on lists, right? The misfire for knock, right? Knock is a standard spell, opens up something that's locked, right?
Opens up locks, yeah.
The misfire on knock is you accidentally strengthen the lock on the door. So you attempted to open it, and now you've just made it harder to open. It's not impossible.
It's just really hard now.
and then, you know, if you rolling on the table below, rolling a 1 in this case, lost, failure, and worse, roll a 1d6 modified by luck, but a 34 or plus. In a staggering display of power, the caster causes all portals within 1 mile to blast open in a violent burst. This includes windows and shutters, cellar stairs and attic trapdoors, oven doors, city gates, as well as normal doors and portals. It's just like, you did it so good. The magic flowing from your hands.
Every openable thing
blew open every possible door in a 1 mile radius. It's just like, and so you like those moments are the beauty points in an RPG. Those are the ones that I like. Those are the ones that something happens, you remember that for life. Remember that one time when you were trying to open that one door and you rolled the 36 and you blew open every door in the entire city. We were trying to be sneaky about it and it just went boom, right? Like, yeah, it's insane.
And I feel like if you sat down and played a game of this, there would be something every session that popped out. And 100%. It would just be memorable and crazy.
So good.
I would love to just swap over to this for a one shot or something.
100%. This would be a lot of
really
fun.
Cool. Yeah.
It would be a lot of fun. I mean, as far as it goes for this, as we've kind of been talking about like what we think about it, right? I love how easy it feels to get into the game it is, but how intense and grandiose the game actually is, right? Like the book itself. Let me just see here, the core game rule book.
It's a hefty book. It's like 500 books or 600 books or 600 pages.
I'm just scrolling through here. 504 is the last page.
Yeah.
Right? So 504 pages for the core rule book. And I mean there's stuff in there where they're talking about like modules and other things that are out there, right?
There's a section for the judge. There's a section for
all the spells and what we've been talking about with their expanded things and stuff like that. So it's not like you need to read it literally cover to cover, but what I'm getting at here, the reason why I think the system is really cool is when we started talking about this, you're creating 4 characters that you're going to throw into the funnel, level 0s, that you rolled 3d6 all the way down. You looked at some tables, you made these characters up, you threw them into the dungeon. One of them came out and this is your guy. And you've done this pretty much without the book's assistance at all. pretty
yeah,
close.
up to then, you are unassisted. You don't have to have the book.
You don't have to have
One
anything.
person has to have the table. The judge has to have the table for you to roll on, and you don't need to have a whole lot of knowledge of this system to
Nope.
play it.
Judge runs the dungeon, you run your characters through the funnel, and you're off and running. And not only that, the reason why I love the funnel system so much, it is the perfect springboard into an adventure.
Yeah,
It is the absolute perfect way. Like I said, I love the fact that it already kind of bashes out the min-maxer crowd. It puts everybody on the same playing field, and it gets some people out of their comfort zone. You don't need to do it. If you don't want to be the character that comes out of that funnel, you could change it. It's fine.
but I mean, yeah.
There are so few times that I'm going to pick the bard. And I know that's not in here, but like for D&D 5e, it's the bard, the monk, and the warlock are typically the characters that I stay away from just because they're not in my neck of the woods.
Right.
And in this type of a setup, it's kind of holding you by the hand and helping you play something new. And that's something I love and appreciate about that system. I love the fact that it gives you that random character, so to speak. And from that random character, if they manage to make their way through to level 10, you see this entire rise to power of your character being the shoemaker in a town to taking out the dungeon at the bottom of this epic, or taking out the dragon at the bottom of this epic dungeon, right?
Yeah.
It's insane. I love it. I absolutely love it. I think that's cool.
I like that there is no pre-established setting.
Right. It's just fantasy.
There's no Faerun, no Greyhawk, no any of that. It is whatever you want.
Here's a dungeon,
Because
and it'll fit in anything.
They say specifically that the world is huge.
Mm-hmm.
The farmer that you are has never been more than 5 miles away from his house.
Exactly.
So he doesn't know what's, beyond that mountain range or on the other side of that forest. He doesn't know. He's out to get through this funnel, through this mini dungeon to start with, and then go on an epic adventure, 25 miles away.
You're Bilbo Baggins.
Exactly.
It's your opportunity to shine. It's so cool. I love it.
That's one of the favorite things about this. The character creator, perfect. It's solid.
It's a really, really good idea.
The brutality of it. I am a sucker for,
That's that old school D&D.
Yeah.
Right?
For my player character to be hurt and for it to show up on my character, I love that.
I do too. I like characters that die. That's something that I think is missing in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. My character never dies at all.
I know.
It's hard to get killed in 5th edition.
Because you spend 2 hours making that character.
Exactly.
I don't
mind, but most people do, and I get it.
You don't spend 5 minutes rolling on 6 different tables and popping a character out.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So it's the whole easy come, easy go thing. But
absolutely,
I'm with you. I would much rather have my characters be slaughtered.
Absolutely.
By the dozens.
if I get the opportunity to go down in a blaze of glory, then that is that character's best moment. Right? I mean, I'm not for one that's like the cheap deaths. I stepped on the left block instead of the right block, and I fell onto some spikes and died. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is if we're fighting against a bad guy and the bad guy hits me and I go down, and then the bad guy hits me while I'm down, yeah, I'm all in on that. Yeah. I'm all in on that because now the bad guy is a really bad guy. The party that is with me really hates the bad guy now. And while my character may be dead, that party's fired up and ready to take that bad guy down.
Exactly.
That's storytelling. That's drama.
And they will dig down to the lowest depths of their skills and pull it off.
They're going to pull that. Exactly. They're going to pull that guy out and destroy him. And that is it really feels like you've got the kid gloves on for 5th edition when you look at a game like this, where it's like, if you die, you're dead. And that's it. If you drop to 0 hit points, you're dead.
I forgot to actually look and see. I don't think there's death saving throws.
There's not.
You hit 0, you're dead.
And that's how it was in the original Dungeons and Dragons. You had your HP pool, and when it got to 0, you were dead. You didn't have any HP left. You are dead. And that is
the way it should work.
It 100% is. Because I feel that we do too much with the death saving throws and the keeping the characters alive when they shouldn't be. Right?
It's a lot of murky gray business in that area. Yes. For sure. Because you do the whole, he's got, 2 more saves left. He'll be fine for another round.
Yeah.
Unless he rolls a 1. But
so I quickly flipped through the book here. There is a bleeding out part of the death system. It says there's a chance of saving a dead character by healing him very quickly, such as with a cleric's ability to lay on hands. A 0 level character that reaches 0 hit points is just dead. But first level character that hits 0 hit points collapses and begins bleeding out. Such a character has 1 round in which they can be healed to prevent their death. If they're healed on that round, they're reduced to 0 HP, or the next round, they're healed per the result of the lay on hands check. If they're not healed before the second round, they may be permanently killed.
Yeah. And the amount of rounds that you bleed out is a
with your
correlation
level.
to your level. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're level 12 or if you're level 7, because you don't go above level 10, you have 7 rounds of bleeding out.
So so it's not so much. If I was playing this, I would go with old school rules. You hit 0, and it says right here, a character or monster when it reaches 0 hit points is dead. And in my opinion, I think I would strike this bleeding out rule from the book if it were me running it.
That's what I would do. I would be done with it. Or
I would make it 1 round no matter what level you are.
Yeah.
Which I think is also fair too.
But
right?
But you have to get healed, otherwise you're done.
Or you're done. And I mean, it may seem a little bit harsh, but I think that's what adds, again, like I said, that's what adds to that drama, right? I need the ability to die. If I am immortal, the game's not fun. I need to be able to be dropped, right? And so in 5th edition, you get dropped, you make your saving throws. If you pass your saving throws, you're back up. If someone heals you, there's so much time in between for a character to come over and either stabilize you. Stabilizing's the worst. And I know the system has to exist, but in the middle of a fight, my character goes down, and I am now ready to make healing saving throws, and they come and they stabilize me. So now I'm at 0 HP. I'm still unconscious, but I'm not making saving throws. I literally sit there until someone heals me.
Yep.
And I do nothing. I just sit there and do nothing the entire time. I don't like that system. I think we made a shift in our games where it was a 2 heal system.
Yeah.
So you can stabilize the character to stabilize them to 0. Or if they're making death saving throws, you can heal them once to stabilize them and then heal them a second time to put healing on them. Or if you're running over to them, you can do the stabilize action. If you pass the stabilize action, you don't have to expend a healing save, but you do have to still cast a heal on them. And it's a 2-round thing.
Yeah. We turned it into a 2-round thing instead of a 1 bounce. Like you become a basketball, then you're up and down and up and down.
Exactly. I think Pathfinder does it right when they have the growing, dying, wounded counter. I think that's a smart play, so that no matter what, if you go down, there's still, at least that way, you still have a carrying thing until you're healed, right?
They did that so that you don't go down, get healed, brought back up, and drop down again.
Exactly. There's tactics involved now.
Yeah.
And you really have to think about it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that is, I wanted to quickly flip through the book and take a look. That is something that exists in the system. The bleeding out rule is there. I would personally look at it, I think, as a sub,
I would
an add-on if you wanted it to. Like
you say, I would drop it down to 1 round.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, after you get attached to the character and you go through a couple levels, you're pretty attached to them.
Yeah, of course.
You don't want to lose them, just like you say, to a bad guy, like an orc that got a lucky shot off and got you. That's no fun.
No, exactly. Now, there is lasting damage. I was talking about the Pathfinder wound system. There is lasting damage for your character if they're bleeding out and they're saved. They suffer permanent physical trauma from their near-fatal injuries, and anyone who is saved suffers a permanent loss of 1 point of stamina. And in addition, you gain a terrible scar from the wound that downed you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's still story in that, and there's still some penalty to going down. But personally, I think I would just strike this. If it were me and I was running this game, I would say if you hit 0, you're dead. That's it.
Yeah. And again, your
fun is valid.
The level gains in this game are slow.
Yeah.
You're not going from level 1 to level 10 in 10 sessions.
A couple sessions,
or 15 sessions. You're like, level 10 is striking gods down, like killing elder dragons, like stuff like that. We're not talking like, I'm level 10. That's halfway to, getting good.
Exactly.
No, at level 10, you're the best that there is.
Yeah, you're the fabled hero, right?
You are Hercules. You are.
When you walk into town, people are whispering like, "Oh, it's John. John's here. Oh, can't believe it." You also said you like the dice.
I love the dice. I'm a sucker for dice, and I'm a sucker for strange dice.
For quirky ones.
I had never heard of a D7.
That's an interesting. The kit is really interesting. The D5 and the D7. They mess with my brain. Because it looks like all the numbers were misprinted on the dice.
It does.
Right? Like everything looks like it doesn't belong where it is.
That's what I thought. I thought they were printed on the corners because that's what they are. They are printed on the corners. Right. Because the corners face up. It's not a flat that faces up.
No. So
when you roll that sucker, you're like, oh, what? It's all crooked and it hurts my eyes.
It's really, it's a bit of a schmoz to do it. But I agree. I like the idea of them having different dice. I could take it or leave it though. And I think if I was running the game, I might simplify down to just like the nearest, the D4, the D6, the D8, the D10, right? Just because
nobody has this full set.
And I wouldn't want it to be a barrier to entry. Now, with that same thing being said, chances are I'm playing this online anyways, so dice don't really factor into it.
Yeah, they are a thing.
Yeah. And then you had also mentioned the old school rules mindset, and I completely agree with you on that one too.
The more systems that I read about that have the OSR mindset to it, the more I fall in love with it, because it is hearkening back to that original D&D feel, where if you do something wrong, there's a good chance you'll die.
There's a penalty. There's a consequence to every action.
And it's the dying. It's the if you get slashed with this sword, you will hurt. And if you hurt too much, you will die. Mm-hmm. There's no coming back. There's no resurrection. There's no maybe there's resurrection. I didn't look through all
is like there's recovering the body. All of that stuff still exists in there. It's just a lot harder than it is in the newer games. The newer games make it so that you just kind of just don't die.
Yeah, because 5e is baby's first D&D.
It is. And I mean, it's designed to make you feel like a hero. Whereas these other games are designed to make you feel like a hero at the end of the game.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? You're not the hero at level 1. You're the hero at the end of the game kind of thing.
Yes,
right?
exactly. And again, the other thing I love about this is the art.
Oh, the art is beautiful.
The sheer amount of art. They have full page spreads of just artwork. And it's like that goopy 70s feel. Doodles, like they got the long nose that droops down and the ears that kind of come out, and it's just so perfect for this feeling. Gorgeous.
It is absolutely gorgeous. All the drawings, everything that's in here, it is absolutely. If you ever get the opportunity to flip through the book, I really highly recommend it. A giant book as well, like massive, like we said, over 500 pages in there. And I like that too. I like the idea of everything being in a single book rather than being in multiples. There's no core rule set.
The only supplementals for Dungeon Crawl Classics, I believe, are
modules.
The modules,
and
which are the adventures.
Too, is there monster books?
There is a monster manual-ish. It's called Twisted Menagerie.
Yeah, and that's kind of how old school worked too. Is they had they didn't have, well, they had monster manuals, but they also had like deities and demigods, and they had the dragon book, and they had.
I don't think there is a.
No, just whatever's in the core book here.
Yeah, just whatever's in the core book
in the judge section.
Yeah. But all of the other stuff is just adventure packs. It's not
modules, and they probably would have their own monsters built into those modules too.
Probably,
et cetera,
because that's what Gooden Games did before, was make modules.
They built those modules
for D&D. So then, and I think they had like 65 modules for.
Oh, there was a lot.
It was crazy.
Quite a few.
Yeah,
which is just, I don't know. It's why it's got that feeling.
It's got that feel because they know what they're doing with it.
They've been doing it forever. So awesome game.
That's about it. Yeah,
I love it. Dungeon Crawl Classics is a game that you want to check out for sure. You definitely can't go wrong. Especially if you're somebody that played the game back in the day and you're looking for something that's a little bit fresh. Check it out.
Yeah, take a look at it. Maybe it'll be up your alley. So DG. Or our after dark
the post pod show.
The post pod. There we go. Walk me through your character creation process. How does that start, and how does it become your character from a budding little idea to a character?
I have a multitude of different ways that I create characters. There are times when I'm watching a movie or a TV show and I'm like, that is a cool idea for a D&D character. And I will literally just pull out my phone, and in the notepad area, I'll type in warrior, this is the thing, this is what they're into, right? And I'll make kind of a quick shot so that I have like my own little compendium that I can pull up at any given time. There are also times when I will jump in and literally roll on like a table of all the classes and races and just randomize something and see what comes up. I create a lot of characters for fun, just to walk through and build these guys, and then I keep them for any time that I have another game and I'm like, I need another character. I look through the ones I have already created, and then I usually just create a brand new one for the game and leave the ones I created on the computer. The most maybe unique one that I created, I attempted to make a thrown weapon fighter named Wedge, and Wedge was a turtle who threw hammers, and he was very much designed after a Hammer Brothers from Mario.
Yeah,
he wore a helmet, and he threw hammers. His character didn't work out very well because the thrown mechanic and the
mechanically
damage,
he didn't work. Yeah,
no, because the farthest you can throw a hammer is 20 feet, and it just didn't.
You're basically in melee then.
Yeah, it just didn't work. And so he ended up using a warhammer, which he's still using a hammer, but the whole point was he was supposed to be like chucking these hammers, right?
Like an endless stream of hammers.
An endless stream of hammers. That's what it was supposed to basically be. So he didn't really work out, and sometimes that happens with the characters, but I I got to tell you, yeah, I find inspiration regularly from TV shows and movies. Not even necessarily the obvious ones, right? Like I was watching, what was I watching? I was watching a show with my kids, and it was Bluey. I was watching an episode of Bluey, and one of the characters basically is like this, essentially like a ranger. And I was like, that's a great idea for a Beastmaster Ranger. This is the pet. This is what they're going to do. This is the concept. And I just kind of write that down into my phone. I'm like, yeah,
Nice.
great.
Yeah.
What about you, man? What's your character creation process look like?
So what I do is sometimes, like you, I have multiple avenues of inspiration. There'll be times where I'll be sitting there and all of a sudden something will pop into my head, and do the same thing as you. I throw it into my notes or into the sticky notes on my computer and put it on there. But I will also go through the player's handbook and Tasha's stuff like that, and look at the classes and look at how the different classes and races interact.
Okay, yep.
And
smart.
This is a little bit of my min-maxi comes out.
Sure.
And I kind of futz with it to see what makes a really neat combination.
Got it.
And how things like that happen. And then I try and come up with, why have they started adventuring? Why are they level 13 now? And what were their past accomplishments that they came to?
Unfortunately for my DMs, I'm a background writer. Like, I love writing that background story of like my character's rise to power and some extra in tidbits. I've learned since the first few characters not to deliver like pages on pages on pages on pages. What I do now is I'll break it into bullet points, and I'll say, like hometown, rivals, sworn enemies, pieces that you need to know about my character, things that you can tie into your story. And it's bullet point, and it makes it so that if the DM wants to, and they don't have to, they're able to stitch those things into the character, into their story, etc.
Yeah.
Which I like doing that.
It does also depend on what level these characters are starting at as to which way I do
That's true
things.
too. Yeah, that's true too. That makes a big difference.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that's about it, right?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to episode 6 of the podcast. If you're enjoying the shows, drop us a line. Let us know. You can shoot us an email at mastersofpenandpaper@gmail.com. As well, if you leave a comment or like the podcast, there's a multitude of different ways that you can support the show. Simply by letting other people know that it exists is definitely top of the line. Rating the podcast does also help us out, leaving a comment, all of those types of things. You can also, like I said, if you drop us a line through email, let us know what you think of the show. Give us what maybe some of these game systems that you're looking at. We're interested in hearing about other systems out there.
Yes,
We're always growing the collection, Finny. We're always looking for new stuff.
I picked up Vampire the Masquerade the other day. So
that's right.
That's another one on the list coming. So
I've always loved the idea of Vampire the Masquerade. So I'm excited to go through that one.
We do have a Discord that there will be a link in the description here. So you can always hit us up and hang out there. We talk all sorts of nerd things and not so nerd things. And
we need more tabletop people in our Discord. We've got a couple, but we need some more in there. So yeah, click the link down in there. And then, of course, you can find us on Twitch. I'm on twitch.tv/DGOnline, streaming every Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. D&D's on Sunday, and Pathfinder games are typically on Wednesday, sometimes Friday. And then, of course, the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube. You can find it youtube.com/@DadGamingOnline. That's it for another one. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Send me pictures of your dice.
Of your dice. He said dice. Have a great one. We'll see you.
Bye.